Live, we are day 2 of the World Cup, done and dusted. Two fantastic games to talk about. Yesterday we sort of ended the preview, or rather ended the show on the note that, bhai, pehla match to acha gaya. Let's hope this is the sign. This is a sign of things to come. And boy, have we been impressed with the two games we've seen. Two low-scoring thrillers, just what I wanted. One where Papua New Guinea almost pulled off a heist against West Indies, which happened yesterday night, 8 p.m. IST. And today morning, man, I was woken up from my slumber by Oman. Well done for doing such a fantastic job of trying to defend 109. Almost got over the line. Unfortunately, not to be the case. We've got Jeet and Nikhil. Hello, gentlemen. Nikhil bhai, पहले आपसे start करते. It's been a while since we've had you as part of any of our panels. गोवा से सीधा वर्ल्ड कप और भाई क्या स्टार्ट किया यार वर्ल्ड कप इस बार.
Bilkul, it's been hectic traveling, but worth the wait and the matches because I mean when you followed these teams and played their domestic tournament so much, when Rubel Trumpelman took wicket on the first ball, मेरा पहला conversation in mind was that one that I had with Jeet कि जब भी मैं इसको कैप्टन वाइस कैप्टन बना ये बंदा नहीं चलेगा आज नहीं बनाया तो आज ये 3 लेगा नहीं ended up taking 3. So again, it just tells you how much enjoying such teams. Whatever success they do on the international stage is very heartening for you because you've followed some of these guys. Now Mehran Khan को तुमने देखा है पहले, so it feels very satisfying कि हाँ चलो भाई अच्छा किया. So in that sense, always good to watch a lot of competitive cricket. Very good early signs as well from West Indies कि अच्छे spinner डालोगे so you know what's going to come your way. So very excited about this World Cup in terms of underdogs. Jai Mata Di.
I mean, underdogs for the win. Nikhil bhai and I, both of us, are owners of that fan club for sure. But Jeet, again, Namibia, Oman, PNG, all of them showing ki boss, they're not here just to make the numbers up. They're here to actually put up a proper performance.
There is a reason why we wanted the T20 World Cup to be expanded, and this is the exact reason why. These are the teams that have got the talent. Sadly, they lack exposure and experience at the highest level. But this is exactly what they are capable of, despite that limited amount of experience that they have at the highest level. So, all these teams, and every season or every edition, we are seeing, these kind of teams put up a performance that's really impressive against the top-ranked teams, and I'm really happy about it with regards to what PNG have done and Namibia Oman. We had called like it was going to be a close call, but Namibia, of course, edging it out eventually.
Yeah, that way, of course, both in terms of the players that we were looking forward to, the names, we'll, of course, get into the nitty-gritties in due course. Don't worry, guys. Let's take a few comments. Before that, hello, Abhas bhai. Watch along for today's match. No, Abhas. Like we mentioned earlier, we will be doing watch alongs only for India games in round 1. It gives the likes of me, Jeet, Nikhil bhai, and even Pramod whenever he join us to talk a lot more about these teams because that's what we want to focus on in the first round. Starting the Super 8s, every day we will be doing watch-alongs. We will be doing a watch-along at 8 p.m. So till the 19th of June, we will be going live at 12 p.m. every day and watch-alongs only for India games. So that's on the 5th of June, 9th of June, 13th if I'm not wrong, and I'm not sure when the 4th game is. वो आप देख लो यार, मतलब नहीं जानना मेरे को वैसे भी. Very good World Cup going on, says Vasant. Vasant also goes on to add all underdogs. I mean, all of us are underdog suckers, and we are going to enjoy this World Cup. I, of course, completely agree with you there. I've always maintained that stance. It's great. It's just absolutely great to watch all of it. Hey, guys, what a start to the World Cup. PNG show they have the potential to upset big teams. 100%, which is why during our preview as well, we had spoken about the kind of names you can look forward to. Jeet had spoken about John Kariko. And in fact, those who actually caught the preview, you might have also heard Pramod Bhai talking about how Tatin the Taibu had told him to keep an eye out for Ale now. He is a new guy, but keep an eye out for him. And boy, did he impress us. Yeah, almost got Nicholas Pooran and Johnson Charles for a duck in his very first over. Got the ball to move away both sides. Oh man, that was a fantastic first over for sure. Jay Shah has been exposed. World Cup scripts are better than the IPL. Call it what you want. We are enjoying. That's all that matters at the end of the day. And Rahul, for no reason, ऐसी sure, ठीक है भाई, why not? But yeah, we will talk about both the games. But of course, let's start with yesterday night's game in what we call About Last Night. Of course, it was West Indies who were also the tournament hosts. It was their first game. The game was happening in Guyana. A game that where I genuinely thought कि भाई 300 पार हो सकता है अगर conditions ठीक हो और वेस्ट इंडीज पहले बैटिंग करे and stuff like that. कहाँ 300 पार की बातें की और कहाँ 130 चेस करते करते थक गए वेस्ट इंडीज. It was great to watch, of course, and for those who sort of weren't able to catch much of the match, this is what it looked like in terms of its summary. West Indies won the toss, opted to field first, sent Papua New Guinea into bat, and Romario Shepherd took a couple of wickets in the power play, and it almost seemed like, ठीक है, about 7 for 2 at the end of 2 overs. They might at best get to 80, 90, 100, but no, that wasn't to be the case. Assad Vala first in the power play. He did start off scratchily, but sort of got those couple of boundaries, and unfortunately then hit one straight to point and got dismissed. But after that, it was Sese Bao who sort of single-handedly stitched those, small little partnerships with people from the other end and ensured that Papua New Guinea first crossed the 100 mark before Kipling Doriga with that fantastic running between the wickets and a couple of those unorthodox shots, ensuring that Papua New Guinea got some semblance of a total. Might not necessarily call it respectable total, but he can. Jo bhi kam se kam something they can play around with. And then with the ball in hand, it was Alinov first in the power play and then John Kariko in the middle overs. Jeet, let's start with you. How impressed were you with the 20-year-old? Yeah, the guy knows how to bowl.
Yeah, absolutely outstanding. So I mean, the kind of right arm pacers they've historically got are those who bowl the keeper up to the stumps. Now, whether that is Chad Soper or Norman Vanua, they generally look to have the keeper up to the stumps and then they bowl the seam up deliveries and cutters. So Ali now brings a different kind of variety, and that is something that we, kind of saw on offer. A surprise why Norman Vanua was left out, but at the end of the day, we don't know what was the exact reason behind that. But fantastic, fantastic bowling. I just wish they had reviewed it, but like you said, you can't quite blame them. But I'm just happy because I and Pramod have been talking all these associates up during the previews, hyping them up, saying that okay, they are really, really good. You never know what's going to happen with these kind of teams because they have the potential. I'm just happy that they are living up to that hype. Like we have been hyping them up, and they have been actually, living up to it. So that's fantastic to actually watch.
Completely agree that Nikhil bhai, in terms of how PNG bowled, I mean, lot of heart to take from that, right?
Yeah, 100% even from the way they batted, to be very honest, because as you said, they were not in a great position to begin with. Lots to talk about for West Indies as well, but that later. But even with the bat, Tisibao coming in and not letting Gutukesh Moti also settle, which I think was a very surprisingly negative move from West Indies to not bowl out both Akhil and Gutukesh Moti, because majoritively ऐसे अगर pitches रहेंगे, so they are going to be the guys who are going to bowl a lot more. So I think from PNG's point of view, that was great. They kept putting out the right amount of pressure back on the West Indies, and you always felt that West Indies, again, at the back of the mind, that West Indies probably have it in them to with the ball and with the bat, but they kept challenging them, and that's a great sign for any side. You talk about that DRS and all of that. Those are all the small margins. Sometimes even big teams are missing. So for PNG to be able to just show West Indies a check that, it was so good to see Puran getting out caught at long on off the slower pace. Okay, and here I am again ranting about a left-arm spinner not bowling slow. So वहाँ पे मैं नहीं जाऊँगा. But the point is just choosing conditions so well. So it was very heartening to see the way clear plans, very well executed. Even in the last over, when they needed limited amount of runs, you had Kaba Moria going very wide of Russell. So again, very clear thinking, clear strategy, and of course you had Phil Simmons there. So he should have enough information about that side.
I actually had a bit of a scare, with John Kariko because when the match was about to start, they show the playing 11s and everything. So they show the player picture and they show the kind of role that the player plays, and they showed seam. They showed seam for John Kariko. I was like, dude, I've watched this guy. He's not a seam bowler. During the preview, I just talked him up about how he's a left-arm spinner, a rare left-arm spinner after Jason Killa. Like, dude, oh my God, I just hope I don't get it wrong because I've watched this guy previously. But yeah, even that guy bowls smarter than Ravindra Jadeja. But ठीक है, छोड़ो अभी फिलहाल.
But to be honest, smarter than Ravindra Jadeja is not as big a compliment as you think it would be. ठीक है भाई, कुछ खास है नहीं, but He definitely bowled fantastically. We will, of course, talk more about it. And, of course, to talk about how West Indies finished the chase off, thanks to Rostin Chase, I mean, Nammi Chase, of course, he had to come good for them. He ensured Vase very efficiently, attacking the bad balls, rotating the strike, did not take undue risks, which is what we saw the likes of Brandon King, Nicholas Purin, Sherfin Rutherford, Robin Powell. I mean, all of these are proven batters. These are big names when it comes to, the global T20 circuit. It was very surprising to see them unnecessarily take those risks. Of course, they sort of played into PNG's trap and it worked in their favor. But in terms of course, top performer of the day has to be none other than Rostin Chase. 42 of 27, 2 6s, 4 4s, a very, very, very handy strike rate of 155. And also, not to forget, with the ball as well, he chipped in. Might not have been amongst the wickets. 4 overs, run for 26. Ensured that he did not really let any of the PNG batters get away with him. Was a more than efficient matchup option there as well. But Jeet, again, now in terms of how West Indies batters, they sort of, played. They almost played into PNG's trap, right? Like, be it Nicholas Purin, the way he started off scratchily and then unnecessarily just tried to hoik every ball that came in front of him. And then later, Powell, Sherfin, Rutherford, the likes of them.
The power play as well against pace, if you observe, it was gentle pace. So none of them were rapid pacers. They were just bowling 125 to 130 range, but they were getting seam movement and swing movement as well. So even that is something that ended up troubling the West Indies. There was Brandon King, who was all on mat against Cabo Amoria initially with the keeper standing back. Even those, the first 3 balls were in swingers, the fourth one being out swinger, he was nowhere. And then Kipling Doriga came up to the stumps, and that was kind of something that allowed Brandon King to break the shackles. The same thing was happening with Nicholas Puran when he batted against Ali now. So they were struggling with the basics there. Even at the end of the day, when you look at Brandon King's scores, 34 of 28, and he was dealing in boundaries. So in between, what we got was his dot balls, and a lot of them. So I just felt that something was kind of wrong with them. And eventually, what ended up happening with even Robin Powell and Sherfin Rutherford was they were tied down when the keeper came up to the stumps. There was Chad Sopo was bowling with the keeper up to the stumps, and these guys were getting tied out, absolutely tied in the crease. They had no answer, and eventually, that's exactly how they ended up getting dismissed. So, yeah, it kind of goes on to show, that there is that Caribbean flair, but that Caribbean flair requires that extra pace for them to deliver, and that was not there on offer. It didn't work out well for them.
Fair enough. And in fact, the likes of Chad Sopa and Mehran Khan today morning, like they don't have a lot of pace. They don't even move the ball, nothing like that. They're very typical line and length bowlers. They're very accurate. They know kahan pe dalna hai. That's where it helps. Those bowling smarts of knowing where. And if you know that, like we've seen even, for example, the likes of Rajat Bhatia, he still had those slower variations, but he was not someone who could, take you out day in, day out. But he knew where to bowl. वो दिमाग चाहिए बस. Chad Sopa, that's what impressed me again. Yeah.
So with that kind of pace, like you said, what really becomes important is to put the ball in the right places. And what these guys do is put the ball in the right places consistently. And that is what, starts building pressure. So you would say that, okay, putting the ball in one spot makes you predictable. But there are certain spots, even if you become predictable, it's quite hard to hit it off those kind of lengths and lines. So that's exactly what Chad Soper does. That's exactly what Ali now did. And Cabo Moria was slightly off the radar today, but it's exactly what the PNG Pacers generally do as a group. So that was something that's quite fantastic and something we look forward to in the future as well.
Yep, 100%. Meanwhile, one of our fellow panelists, Pramod Bhai, also saying, we spoke of 300 yesterday. West Indies may have lost it if they had to chase even 150 there. Agree with you, yaar. Again, like I said, so pleasantly surprised. And kal Bangalore mein, for, again, those who don't know, बहुत जोर से बारिश हुई. It's been crazy heavy rains in Bangalore. हर जगह बिजली, like मेरे घर के सामने पेड़ कार के ऊपर गिर गया. It's proper, like it's like I won't say destruction, but it's been heavy rains, heavy downpour. Amidst all of that, मैं बस ये match देख रहा हूँ. I'm like, हाँ ठीक है, जा रहा है. And then out of nowhere, they made a match out of it. And Nikhil bhai, Jeet spoke about how PNG bowlers, they know where to bowl. They know the right places to bowl, and that's all that matters at the end of the day. You don't need a lot of other skills if you know how to do that, if you have those smarts. But if we are going to talk about someone who bowled well, someone who bowled the ball at the right places, we cannot look past John Kariko. We've got a collage of his pitch map and his beehive in terms of where he bowled the areas. Just look at that. Just look at the concentration of the balls. He was very clear in terms of where he wanted to bowl, how he wanted to bowl, irrespective of whether he was bowling to a left-hander or a right-hander. Importantly, just look at the height of the balls. None of them above the height of the stumps. Perfectly conditions, knew how to use that 4 to 6 meter length without letting any of the batters get away. How impressed were you with this young lad? Yeah, he's just 20 years old.
I mean, so much maturity for a guy who's had so little of international cricket. And again, this guy has played under 19 cricket. So of course, usko itna to understanding already hai, which you can see from the way he's grouped those deliveries. Now, when you saw the game, you saw a very good and a straight plan that I will bowl everything just around off stump. I have a cover in place, and every time you saw whether it was Chase or even King or anybody who's batting at that point of time, they were unable to get the gap because it was so tight that you can't come down. Now you will see कि भाई pace नहीं है, but even without pace, the line was so tight that you couldn't afford giving yourself room or come down to just maneuver the field. So I think that is something that I'm hoping people are going to start taking note of, and it is a great sign for Kariko that he's going to be an example of a bowler that bowl like how he did. And if a guy who's so young, almost just not even 21 yet, if he's able to execute those plans so well, there is no reason for the others to not do. I think he probably outbowled Akil Hussain as well, in my opinion. But again, that is just a different ball game because they were bowling first with a lot more freedom probably in their mind in terms of how they wanted to go about it. But for Kariko to do it under pressure, defending a low score, I think it was exceptional and very, very heartening to see a guy that all of us in terms of have hyped for him to do well. And Ali now, yeah, he got run out without even facing the ball. Otherwise, उससे थोड़ा बैटिंग पोटेंशियल भी दिख जाता हमें. But even with the ball, whatever we saw of everybody, you can't. Probably Moria was the only guy who was a bit off, but even he started really, really well. So I think it was a very good bowling performance from PNG as a whole. The only nitty gritty that I have is that last over that Assad Vala bowl. Maybe that is something that he could have avoided, but again, it's a thing that West Indies love pace. It was always going to be about that one over where they go really big. So, but again, for PNG to even push West Indies still there, it's a win for them.
Yep, 100%. And Jeet, speaking of Assad himself, the way he bowled, he knew batters are going to look to attack him, slowed it up, made the batters hit it into the wing. So hitting sixes were not going to be that easy. And Brandon King caught the big guy. It's just beautiful to watch when such setups come to fruition, right? You know what the setup is, and then you see it pay those dividends. This is crazy.
So there were two things I was harping upon in the last few days. One was the wind factor over here because, of course, it's an island nation, so quite open stadiums. There are not grandstands 360 degrees that are blocking the air that's coming in, the breeze that's coming in. So wind factor is a huge thing, and we saw that over here. Second was day games in the West Indies and how I talked about there is more turn during the day games, and in the night games the conditions changed quite a lot, the spinners not being as effective at most of the venues. So both these things were at play. And then Asadwala, like you mentioned, he had the smarts of actually using that breeze. So somebody who keeps it tight, somebody who doesn't err so often on line or length, he's a very stump to stump bowler and he's very smart at varying his pace as well. So I could understand what he was trying to do there. Brandon King, of course, fell for it. But even at the back end, like he backed himself to try and bowl a tight over to have that run rate go up a lot, the required run rate go up a lot. It just didn't work out in hindsight, but a good call all in all in terms of captaincy throughout the innings, in terms of which bowler was used at what particular time, and even the field settings and bringing the wind factor at play, and it was quite impressive.
Definitely very impressed, and hopefully Papua New Guinea at least end the league stage with a couple of wins, if not more. They're yet to face New Zealand, Afghanistan, and Uganda. If I'm not wrong, is the other team? No, I don't think it's Uganda. Who will be the other team? PNG and Uganda in the same group?
It is Uganda.
It is Uganda. All right, thank God. Okay. Oh yeah, Afghanistan, Uganda tomorrow. So yeah,
Yes.
yeah, it is. Yeah, of course. So let's hope they are able to notch a few wins there, if not more. And at the very least, if we get to see such good performances, that's all that we're here for. Yeah. That's all we're here for. Anyway, segment ka naam about last night. Of course, we won't be talking about just last night's game. We'll also be talking about the game that happened today morning or US's night. So technically, दोनों night games here. एक India night game है, दूसरा US का night game है. Coming to what we saw in the morning, Namibia Oman. It was all Ruben Trumpelman in the beginning, and then later on, at the end of the first innings, most of us would have been like, "Ha, theek hai." They would probably look and chase this down in 13, 14, 15 overs, get their net run rate up a bit to sort of, have that outside chance of making it through. And then out of nowhere, spinners, once again, spinners coming into the picture, the way they bowled, the way they tightened the screws on the Namibian batters. Let's have the match summary out here. Nikhil, in terms of how the match panned out, I'll leave it open to you.
Yeah, I think it was again Ruben Trumpelman doing Ruben Trumpelman things. He's probably the only guy to take 2 wickets of the first 2 balls in a T20 game. In World Cup, only guy to take 4 wickets in first 3 balls of a T20 game. So in the World Cup, so again, it just tells you how much class that is. If you did not see the dismissal of Elias Bhai, please go ahead and check out how he got Akeem Elias. Probably a year late on that ball, hit him right on the toe, and got him LBW. That just meant that Oman will always on the back foot. Slightly rescued by Zishan and Khalid Khail, who got them to a decent, amount of runs, and eventually turned out to be just enough for them to tie the scores. But you always felt Namibia had the game because they have a lot of batting. Slightly, I won't say disappointed, but they took their time. Frylinck was able to get those runs towards the back end because in the chase they kept losing a wicket. Whenever you thought that they'll run away with it, they lost a wicket. Whenever you thought now they'll press it, they never got going. 10 over mark, they were 40 odd for 3. That's not the place you want to be when you're chasing a score like that, because it's scores like these that are tricky for you to start. And the smart thing that Oman did was they never gave enough pace, which just makes me pull my hair, बचा हुआ hair out कि भाई तुम सुपर ओवर में इतना पेस क्यों डाल रहे थे, क्यों फुल डाल रहे थे, तुमने पिच यूज नहीं किया. But again, it just tells you why they need to play a lot more, And again, I wouldn't. Maybe it's about expectations, but for me, I expected a lot more out of this Oman side, which is very experienced, or maybe they are too experienced. You look at the entire batch, their average age for the squad is probably higher than most of the squads that are there.
They're the oldest squad, 33, average age of 33, oldest squad.
So they have a lot of people who've played a lot of cricket. So you expect them to be able to just hold on to those pressure moments, and again, that is something that they'll only get better at. But maybe, which is why I felt that there were a lot of fumbles and stuff that happened in the second half when Frylinck and everybody, they gave 3 chances. First was Mehran Khan to drop a cotton bolt, then David Vizay caught one, but then Ayan Khan dropped a tough one. And again, that was a far tougher one. And then you had another catch drop of Frylinck in the deep. So those are the mistakes. Again, at that point of time, you still felt that Oman have enough in the bank, but Namibia just kept checking, and that 4 byes and the last ball miss. To go from fine hitting of 6 to fine hitting of 3, I think Oman had the game in their bag. They just let it slip. And as harsh as it is, you don't get such chances very often.
That's right. Those 4 byes, to be honest, पहले मुझे भी लगा अरे यार पकड़ना था ना, but then it really took off. It took off from nowhere. It was very tricky take. So you can't. Of course, you could see how animated Dulip Mendes himself was at the end of the game. At the end of the 20 overs. Oh my goodness. You can feel the emotions. You can understand where they're coming from as well. Leads in every win is that much more important for them as well. And again, in case you didn't know, those who qualify to the Super 8s this time around will directly qualify for the next edition of the T20 World Cup. So they're playing for a lot more than just the trophy here, especially all these associate nations. That's why it's that much more important. Kahin se just eke out those couple of wins, eke out a massive win, and you never know. Things can just sort of go your way. But Jeet, of course, Nikhil Bhai spoke about Ruben Trumpelman doing Ruben Trumpelman things. He's definitely our top performer for the game. 4 overs, 4 for 21, importantly 11 dots in that spell. Those 2 Yorkers, no one saw it coming. Everyone was expecting swing hoga movement. See that top on your toes. Excellent spell that, right? Especially with the new ball.
It's something that we have seen before against Scotland, if you remember that particular spell in the very first over what he did. So it was something that we have seen happen before. So it was not a huge surprise to see Ruben actually do that. But what really worked in his favor is that there was a bit of curve as well with the new ball. He tried the same thing against Australia in the warm-up game at Trinidad, but there was nothing happening on that particular track. So whenever he bowled full, whenever he pitched it up, David Warner took him apart. But here there was some kind of assistance that he had to work with, and then it was just too easy for them. So Naseem Kushi, of course, he has been opening. He has that bit of an experience, and he's outstanding in terms of aggression. But technically, there are still a lot of flaws with him. So that got clearly exposed eventually, and that's the very reason why I was actually surprised that when the super over came, I would have personally preferred to have Akib Ilyas and Zishan Maqsood as my two first openers over Naseem Kushi, because I wouldn't back Naseem Kushi as my first pick when 22 are required of 6 balls or 21 are required of 6 balls. He wouldn't be my first choice. I'll have him at number 3, that's fine. But for me, it would have been Akib Ilyas who would have opened alongside Zishan Maqsood.
But for me, Zishan Maqsood in a super over is a very tricky prospect, yeah, because I've always looked at him as a very, matlab singles le lega, he'll rotate strike. He's not one of those boundary hitters. That's
Yeah.
what. So,
But
fair.
their choices were very, very limited in this playing 11 because they didn't even go for Rafiullah in the playing 11. So that guy's
Yeah.
a 6 hitter, but he was not there. So their options were very limited in terms of those big hitting players or players who still have the ability. And at the end of the day, again, maybe they also wanted to back that right hand, left hand, or maybe they just backed experience altogether at the end of the day.
Exactly, you can't blame them again. Not too many things going wrong for them. Like we said yesterday as well, us being critical is us being objective about the game. When we at the very, I mean, we all are with these sides and we understand that at the very least are getting experience out of this. So make no mistake, we all are rooting for these underdogs, like we've time and again mentioned. It's just about us trying to understand where they can get those tiny 1%ers right, so that these are the things that matter at the end of the day. Results, of course, there are your big pieces that you need to take care of, and there are these tiny little subplots, sub battles that you need to take care of, and we will be talking about it. But of course, speaking of Ruben Trumpelman and his excellent spell, he is one of only 4 bowlers to have taken more than 3 wickets in the power play twice. I mean, that's a very elite list to be a part of. Angelo Matthews, Dirk Nannes, Trent bowled Ruben Trumpelman. That's a fantastic job done there. So kudos to him. Hopefully, against the likes of Australia, England, if he is able to repeat even half of what he did today, it'll be great. Yeah, imagine getting someone like David Warner and Mitchell Marsh out in the first over. Oh my goodness, I'll be coco. Let alone
Mitch Marsh, good chances, very good chances.
तो इसीलिए देखते हैं. But of course, talk about those tiny 1%ers. Nikhil Bhai spoke about Bilal Khan and how he didn't use the surface in the super over, just fed pace, fed those full deliveries. Again, he's known for his Yorkers, so he backed himself to sort of, execute those. Unfortunately, David Visa and Erasmus, both of them were expecting that. They were rooted deep inside the crease. भाई तू डाल तो full डाल. मैं square में इस तरफ मारेगा, मैं square में उस तरफ मारेगा, मैं wait करेगा. And he did not show the smartness needed to sort of change his length. Had he pulled it back, had he probably attacked the leg stump, not the off, not just stumps, the leg stick when batters were shuffling so much, you never know, wicket here, a wicket there. They could have probably restricted Namibia to 11 or 12, but not to be the case. And to show the difference between David Visa's bowling and Bilal Khan's bowling, just look at the pitch map of the super over in particular. Bilal Khan stuck to what he knew best. Half volleys Yorkers, half volleys are basically attempted Yorkers. And look at David Visa. He knew he had the smarts to mix it up. What also helped in his favor was that he was able to execute those Yorkers as well whenever he attempted them. And whenever he didn't execute them, he didn't err on the shorter side, he erred on the fuller side. He'd much rather bowl a low full toss than a half volley because it's a lot more easier to sort of catch hold of a half volley, which is, again, you can't really help those things, not in your control. You're attempting to execute those Yorkers. But Jeet, were you on board with the idea of having Bilal Khan, who is arguably Oman's best bowler, over Mehran Khan, who was Oman's best bowler for the day?
I didn't mind that. I could understand what the thought process was over there. So, as you mentioned, he was trying those Yorkers, but Herald Erasmus and David Visa were too deep inside the crease to actually make use of it. And that's where, there's a bit of an issue with Bilal because those variations are not so frequent with him. He's primarily good at in the power play itself when the ball swings around and he pitches it up or bowls his Yorkers. And the death also, his go-to weapon is the Yorkers. You generally don't see so many cutters into the pitch and all those kind of variations coming into play. So I could understand what was the thought process behind opting for Bilal Khan. So I didn't mind it entirely. I know it didn't work out, but then Mehran Khan, it was. I know he bowled a very good last over, but there was a lot of risk going with that particular call. So you'd always back something that's a lot more safer, something that's a little bit more tried and tested or experienced, and that's exactly what Oman did. So I didn't really mind it entirely. I just wish or hope that Bilal would have tried a few more variations because the plan was very clear. He bowled six balls, all six were Yorkers or attempted Yorkers outside the off stump line. So had he got a couple of them like David Visa that were into the pitch, back of length, cutters, whatever that was, some kind of variation rather than having six balls in the same areas, then I feel the outcome could have been a little more different, or at least he wouldn't have ended up conceding 20 plus runs. So Mehran Khan, I was not too sure despite that last over. Maybe I also would have backed Bilal over Mehran for that particular over.
Fair enough, and I know Nikhil bhai echoes those thoughts because we did have that conversation off air. But again, Nikhil bhai, you spoke about using the surface. Like मेरे दिमाग में बस यही है, Bilal length भी नहीं. Had he just shuffled, moved his line, at least played around with that line. हर बार wide outside off stump, एक अगर stumps पे डाल देता, leg stump Yorker, if he got it bang on, Gerhard Erasmus was gone for all money in my opinion, because he was shuffling well outside off stump, expecting that wide outside off stump Yorker. But nothing happened. He just kept going for it again and again, and he ended up being too predictable there.
Yeah, and again, something about Jeet said. It's about when you are on a stage like this at that point of time, you have you can understand the thought process that okay, I am going to try and do what we have decided, in our meetings. Okay, I'll stick to this plan. And you see both the teams, they backed both their best end overs bowlers. Now Namibia did not go to Rubel Trumpel. He took 3 wickets. They also stuck to David Vise, who bowls cutters, but David Vise did not bowl a cutter till the fourth ball. He bowled a Yorker only. He bowled a low full toss to begin with, then again bowled a Yorker, then bowled a Yorker which he got a wicket with. So he, even after seeing what Bilal tried, even he was still happy to only back Yorkers first. So that just tells you, okay, how much ever we want to feel the difference or the practicality of it, sometimes the players feel the margin of error for us on that day is still a lot more with the Yorker. And again, see, it's a very individual thing. If you ask Rabada, he'll not attempt a Yorker. He'll attempt back of length only and then will questioning ke to Yorker kyun nahi dalta. So the margin of error on execution is very, very little. What I'm personally very, very slightly off with is the planning that we know how David Vise plays. For years, you've seen him play and use that offside so well. Yet, if you're bowling that line, you need to have two people back. I was appalled by the first ball itself, which went for a four, which was wide. Ke, agar aap bowl line try kar rahe ho, you will have to, you either bowl to your field and then you defend that field, which is great. But then when you get the first one wrong, the second one ends up being a very, very high, like almost like a hit me full toss, which is deposited, and then the ball is under complete pressure. So I think it was just a day that Namibia and Oman both made mistakes. Eventually, Oman made lesser of them. Namibia made lesser of them, and they eventually went on to win. But I don't think in Namibia will be very happy with that win because they had to literally scrap their way through. Frylinck struggled, so did Devin because they waited for the bad balls. They did not come. So for Oman to do that, I think was great. But for both those teams, West Indies and also Namibia, I don't think they'll be very pleased with the way they have eventually got those 2 points because what you have to remember is to make the top two, you will need big wins. खाली जीतने से काम नहीं चलने वाला. It is going to be very tight. So let's see how it turns out for both.
100%. And Jan Frylinck's knock, like, Jeet, what did you make of it? I know Owen Morgan himself also sort of suggested, yeah, this is a bad knock. It was too scratchy. Strike rate acha nahi tha. But I, to be honest, thought that he played the situation well. Yeah, the situation did not command, 30 ball 50 or something like that. So he played according to it. What did you make of it, though?
I felt it was a good knock from Frylinck. So again, this guy is somebody who has improved upon his batting a lot. So it was situation based, and at the end of the day, so of course, being Namibian cricketers, there is that bit of a South African connect. So most of these Namibian batters, whether it is Nico Darwin or Jan Frylinck, Gerhard Erasmus, all these guys like pace on the ball. When it's not, they tend to struggle. So that's what we saw against Mehran Khan when there was pace that was taken off. And when they got pace on, which was in that super over against Bilal, they smashed it. So that again went on to show that the pitch was not there. for the batters to make merry. There was not much pace on offer either, so you had to adjust. It's not their primary strength, so they had to adjust to that pitch. They had to pace their innings, and at the end of the day, they had the target in front of them. They knew what they had to chase, and that number was not so huge for Jan Frylinck to warrant a say 40 ball 50 either. He was losing partners from the other end, so he had to be really cautious because at the end of the day, even JJ Smith is coming after a bit of a break. He has not been a regular because of his personal reasons, which were quite understandable. So he had to be smart there. He had to ensure that he kind of anchors along, holds one end up, and takes it deep. So I wouldn't really blame him for that kind of knock. On paper, it might look bad, but he played the situation well, like you mentioned.
Anyways, all in all, at the end of the day, Namibia do go home with 2 points, and Oman go with a lot of pride intact. The boss Jobio fight the Omnidia, and that's important at the end of the day. So good on their part. Hopefully, again, they like Avnish likes to say, you win some, you learn some. This is definitely a proper learning experience for Oman, and hopefully they do sort of come out of it a lot more learned in terms of understanding what needs to be bowled in certain conditions and why it's not always about backing his strengths and just sort of going like a one-trick pony into every game, every situation. So yeah, all in all, two fantastic games that we got to see, and fingers crossed. Those aren't just two games, but two of a lot, many more to come going forward into the tournament. Because make no mistake, we're just day 2 into the tournament, so a lot more games coming up. 40 games in the first round, so 38 more to go. Yep, we're all for it. We're all for it. To be honest, for the longest time, I thought I wouldn't be enjoying the World Cup. But now I've realized I'll be enjoying the World Cup till the 18th of June. उसके बाद I'll just switch off. खत्म. उसके बाद मेरा कोटा खत्म. अभी लोड चली मैं. That'll be me definitely. Imagine if today's game became boring, says Vasant, which is very likely. Sri Lanka, South Africa, I'm guessing he's referring to that game. Benny Howell type bowlers काम आएंगे. Huh? I mean, fair enough. जिनके पास वो variations and stuff like that. Fair point that. Anyways, time for us to now move on to the next segment, which is What's Trending. A segment that we've introduced for the World Cup, where we just sort of showcase what's happening in the social media circle of cricket in terms of the games, both the games that are going on. Let's start with the West Indies Papua New Guinea game first, though. 3 tweets once again. One of it, of course, talking about Charles Amini and the kind of impact not just Charles Amini, but the entire Amini family have had on cricket in Papua New Guinea. The tweet goes on to say, Charles Amini's brothers, Colin Amini and Charles Amini Jr., father Chris Amini, mother, I'm pretty sure I'll get the pronunciation right, so I'll just chuck it. Aunt Cheryl Amini, grandfather Brian Amini, and great-grandfather Amini Ali. Or is it just Amini? Sorry. All have played cricket for PNG. Great-grandfather, aunt, mother, father, brothers, 2 of them that is, all of them have played cricket for PNG. This goes on to show how big an impact the family have had on cricket in Papua New Guinea. And of course, the main cricket stadium in Papua New Guinea is apparently also called the Amini Stadium, something I didn't know of. So good on you, Krishna Kumar, for putting that out for us as well to understand what's happening there in terms of cricket in Papua New Guinea. And of course, the second tweet is when John Kariko's father introduced him to Sir Richie Richardson. And look at that, yesterday against West Indies, the guy came out on top and how. And the third tweet is about the West Indies and how they, of course, scratched themselves to a victory, but massive respect for Papua New Guinea. They gave the home team one hell of a fight, thanks to half centurion Seseba and, of course, John Kariko, Captain Assad Vala's office, and Ale now with his new ball spell. Completely agree with all of those thoughts. Couldn't be more happy about how they played. And, of course, these kind of wins also tend to rally people around social media because we've not heard of these names, and all of a sudden you see them going well against, proven, okay, if not legends, proven strikers of the ball, like Nicholas Pooran, Brandon King, Sherfin Rutherford. It's just so heartening to see. And talking about today's game, like I said, the game definitely woke me up from my slumber. First one, of course, from Bharat Sundaresan, a very popular name, not just online, offline as well. He goes on to say, he's bowled the house down in Barbados tonight, but Ruben Trumpelman's biggest achievement is outdoing David Visa with the hair game. Now, that's the mean of someone who'll never let you down. All right, Bharat definitely knows a thing or two about hairstyle, so we don't have to comment on it. But Jeet, for someone who definitely enjoys making his hair, impressed with Ruben Trumpelman's hairstyle then?
It's an interesting hairdo. I didn't see that coming. So when he was in the huddle, I started realizing, oh, okay, that's Ruben. Yeah, good, something different, much better.
Something different for sure. But Nikhil bhai, for me personally, though, it's still David Visa's hair. Yeah, it's very flowy. It's very luscious.
Yeah, something that I want to try but never get permission to be able to pull it off. Hopefully, someday, someday we'll do it.
Someday when the hair is still intact and we are able to grow something like that,
And
for
when there
sure.
are no runouts, I was almost screaming my lungs out at 6:12 कि भाई तुम नसीम खुशी भाई तू रन आउट क्यों हो रहा है तू भाई खड़े खड़े स्टंप पे गिर जा चलेगा रन आउट मत हो सुबह सुबह मैं ये सब मत कराओ मेरे से
Akshay, David Visa or MSD, who
Hey,
has
David
output a
Visa.
lot,
it is not
who
even
has
a
a lot of
contest
flowy hair.
Even there. I mean, for what it's worth, I had flowy hair till about my shoulders, just like 3 years ago. I not cut my hair for like 15 months, and then eventually my cousins had a no entry policy. They literally took me to the hairstylist, and they're like, "You're getting your hair chopped, or else you're not entering the house." So that's how I had to get rid of my hairstyle. Speaking of course, more tweets from today morning's game. We, the associate cricket fans, have seen Bilal Khan doing this day in, day out and being highly successful at it. An expensive super over in a World Cup match doesn't make him a bad bowler or Oman's decision to trust him with it. He's one of the absolute best. Something we also spoke about. Just because it didn't work out does not mean the decision was bad. That'll just be hindsight talking. It was just trying to understand what the different thought processes were, and there was definitely merit in the argument in terms of backing your best bowler. So you can't deny that. So fair shout to the person tweeting as well over there. And lastly, of course, Namibia could barely make 109 runs in 20 overs, and then they went on to make 1/5 of those runs in just one over in the super over. Lol. I mean, that definitely goes on to show ki bhai, if fed the right kind of deliveries, any surface can become a belter. And if bowled well, then any flat surface can become a tricky one to bat on. Just again, it's cricket 101, but when we जब ऐसे stats सामने आते तो लगता है अरे भाई हाँ ना गजब एकदम strange wow अच्छे बॉलिंग करने से रन्स नहीं मारते अरे बाप रे ये तो पहली बार सुना है
ये तो लेटेस्ट न्यूज़ है
exactly ये तो latest news है but anyways that's it from what's trending right now in terms of the two games and now quickly to move on to the next segment which of course involves you people out there and that is who am I. All right, the segment that's specifically for all you viewers out there, just to have you guys engaged and also let you guys earn a quick buck. Like I said yesterday, it's going to be a giveaway contest where we will be giving you 3 hints, and like the segment says, who am I? You've got to guess the player, who these 3 hints are about. So first, I'll show you yesterday's 3 hints, and where is the graphic? There we go. Okay, play domestic cricket in a different country with another member of the current US squad. Played in 3 different franchise leagues, and I share my debut with 4 other players, all of whom are a part of the World Cup squad. So this was yesterday's 3 hints. Jeet, Nikhil, bhai, either of you have any clue, like any guesses that you guys want to throw in terms of who this person could potentially be? Both of them are earnestly thinking that.
Is it Mr. AG?
Interesting. All right, I'll hold on to those thoughts before Nikhil.
It's either AG or I have another name on my mind.
All right, you can throw in both if you want. No worries.
Corey Anderson.
Interesting. Okay. Nikhil bhai, what about you?
ना नहीं मेरे मन में भी कोरे था उसके अलावा तो और कोई नाम ऐसा क्योंकि 2 countries है so that is the only line this goes into or could be someone from Ireland also but yeah let's
क्यों भाई इंडियंस भी तो इतने सारे क्या पता
हाँ
भाई
वो भी है
Fair enough. Anyways, the correct answer is Mr. AG, Mr. Andries Kaus. He did make his debut with 4 other players, including Harmeet Singh, Milind Singh, Nostush Kenjige, and Shailewant Sholvik. That happens against Canada in April. He played domestic cricket for I'm forgetting who it was, but he did play with Shordley for the same team for a while in 2017-18. And of course, he's played in the International League T20, the IL T20 earlier for Abu Dhabi Knight Riders. Then he's played the Major League Cricket and, of course, the US Masters T10 as well. So those are the 3 franchise leagues he's been a part of. And we do have a winner. So congratulations, Mr. Prayash. You are yesterday's winner for the contest. So well done. Do get in touch with us on Twitter Do DM us on Twitter at @BRCricket and we will do the needful. So congratulations once again. This was about yesterday's contest. Now coming to today's Who Am I quiz. Where is the graphic? There we go. So these are the three hints. Fairly straightforward. I've dismissed KL Rahul in the World Cup. I've shared the dressing room with the likes of Babar Azam and Ahmed Shehzad. My best T20I figures came against UAE in 2019. All right. So make no mistake, these are the three hints. Here you go. I have dismissed KL Rahul in the World Cup. I've shared the dressing room with the likes of Babar Azam and Ahmed Shehzad. My best T20I figures came against UAE in 2019. So these are the three hints. So once again, to be clear, the player will always be relevant to the teams that we will be reviewing on the day. So he's going to be a part of the 4 teams that featured in today's review. So that's probably another hint that you can always keep in mind about. And again, guys, once again, please do not key in your answers or enter your answers in the live chat. You've got to wait for the live stream to end. And only those answers that are submitted at the end of the live stream in the main comment section will be collected or will be considered. So please, you'll only be helping out your fellow viewers by keying it in the live chat. Nikhil and Jeet are clearly thinking. You guys can also think and maybe if needed, probably throw in a Google search or two and see who this person is. So that's it from today's Who Am I contest. We'll be looking forward to seeing who gets it right this time around. Time for us to now move on to the last segment for today's What's Up World Cup episode. And that is Let's Look Ahead. Oops, I directly showed the graphic instead of showing this thing. My video editor won't be happy with it. There. Already see गाली वहाँ पे पढ़ते हुए मेरे को. So anyways, let's look at it as of course the segment where we talk about the games that are going to happen in the next 24 hours, or basically the games that we will be reviewing in tomorrow's What's Up World Cup episode. So of course, like I accidentally showed the graphic earlier, it is Sri Lanka taking on South Africa, and that game's happening tonight at 8 p.m. And then, of course, it's Afghanistan versus Uganda, and that game's happening tomorrow at 6 a.m. in the morning. So those are the two games that are scheduled for tonight and tomorrow. Guys, let's start with Sri Lanka, South Africa. First game between two test-playing nations this time around. What are your expectations, Nikhil bhai? Let's start with you there.
Yes, and of course, इसके 2 घंटे बाद we will also do Fantasy Live. So वहाँ पे we will discuss a lot more about this game. So do tune in for that. Baki, I think South Africa start favorites. Last 5 games also South Africa won. With Sri Lanka, you don't quite know what to expect. Remember, they've lost a warm-up game already to Netherlands. So they'll be coming in with some pressure to just express themselves. South Africa, I think, are really brimming with confidence. But again, they have issues with Quinton's form, Markram's form. But it's that middle order that I'm very happy to see. Klaasen, Stubbs, Miller. Now, if Quinton and Riza can do something, then these 4 guys to follow with Jansen, that could really light up the game. But again, new venue, newly built, again at the same venue where India played the warm-up game against Bangladesh. So it should hold a bit. So it's going to be an exciting game. Hopefully, more for the all-rounders than for the batters because bowlers FC. Baki, just like I think I did not want to take the name, but like King, even Akshay is stuck there, and not the king not the king of India, but the king of West Indies. तो भाई वो भी आप सब समझ के लेना. So Jeet bhai, your thoughts on the first game, that's Sri Lanka and South Africa?
As funny as it may sound, I feel Sri Lanka have a 60-40% chance of winning this game. I know their batting is bang average, and South Africa are much better as far as the batting is concerned. But the gulf between Sri Lanka's bowling and South Africa's bowling is believed quite big, because there are proper wicket-taking options in the Sri Lankan lineup, whether it's their pacers or the spinners. They've got so many wicket-taking options that they have at their disposal. That's why, again, funnily, I personally believe maybe Sri Lanka have a higher chance of winning this game. And like I mentioned, their batting is bang average, but at the end of the day, they do have a very good batting depth, and whom they've got in the middle order are some very, very experienced players. And that experience is going to be really, really vital, whether it's Dasun Shanaka, Angelo Matthews, or potentially Dhananjaya D. Silva. That middle order is very, very experienced. So that is something that could really, really come in handy for them. But at the end of the day, I believe the bowlers have a very, very good chance of winning the game for them this time around.
Yeah, because I think it is going to be the bowling only because, as you said, the batting is a bit of a hit or a miss. So, which is why I felt that the bowling, while South Africa may not have the bowling required for those decks, but I expect them to counter Sri Lanka's bowling better because they have people in the middle order which are in form. So again, it definitely sets it up for a very interesting game because for all the good things that you hear about Sri Lanka, they don't play leg spin well. And Tavares Samji has enjoyed, bowling against Sri Lanka. I think the last time they played, he was the player of the match as well. So again, most of it comes down to the conditions because if the conditions are what we saw in the warm-up game, I think both teams' bowlers will not mind that. So that is very, very hopefully should be a close game. The second game that we have is of Afghanistan, who are finally back and they are going to play Uganda. First thoughts on that game?
First thoughts are it's going to be tough for Uganda, to be very, very fair. And there is, at least I believe, a chance of some kind of T20 World Cup record being broken in this particular game. The venue, we saw how it behaved in the West Indies versus PNG game. There will be
Yeah.
some kind of turn. I don't know whether they are going to use the same deck or not. It's a night game this time around. But of course, I mean, Afghanistan's bowlers are really, really good enough, whether it's their pacers or the spinners. And I don't see how Uganda would have faced the quality of spin that they would be facing this time around against Afghanistan. So that's really going to test them out. Similarly, it's going to test their bowlers as well, whether it's Alpesh Ramjani or Seniondo. The kind of spin that they've got will be tested against Afghanistan's batters as well, who are really good at taking on these kind of spinners. So that's also where their metal will be tested. So at the end of the day, of course, it's of Ugandan batters versus Afghanistan bowlers, whether it's the pacers or the spinners, where we'll see a huge kind of gap, and Uganda will be tested a lot.
Yeah, because I feel today is the right game for both Rashid. The game tomorrow is the right game for Rashid and Noor to start the World Cup well because they won't get a better chance because Rashid hasn't been among the wickets in this format, but Noor could really trouble a lot of those Uganda batters. And on that note, welcome back, Akshay.
Yes, welcome back. And pata nahi bhai, Wi-Fi is down and it's raining once again here, so could be the case. Sorry, kahan pe the hum? I could hear Afghanistan bowlers
So
being talked about.
you can give us your thoughts on the Sri Lanka game and then we can move to the Afghanistan Uganda game.
ज्यादा कुछ थॉट्स है नहीं. श्रीलंका साउथ अफ्रीका वैसे गेम कहां पे हो रहा है एक बार ग्राफिक फिर से दिखा देते ताकि मेरे को भी याद आ जाए. Yeah, Sri Lanka, South Africa. The game's happening. In New York. The game's happening in, or rather, at Nassau County International Cricket Stadium, and of course, Afghanistan, Uganda is happening in Guyana. Interesting. Sri Lanka, South Africa. I did hear off the top Nikhil by talking about how South Africa have had the wood over them in the recent past, but Sri Lanka's bowling definitely has that X factor. Dilshan Madhushanka. There's also Nuwan Tushara, Patirana also coming in, Tikshna Hasranga, Chamira. So a lot of interesting names in that bowling attack, but a wavered South African bowling attack versus sort of a very timid Sri Lankan batting attack. That's going to be the matchup, and I'm hoping Sri Lanka wins. That's it. Just so that it'll be fun, because South Africa will be the favourites expectedly. So I'm just going to root for Sri Lanka.
Because of course, so he's going to support Uganda against Afghanistan, obviously.
इसमें पूछने वाली बात क्या थी मेरे को समझ नहीं आया. नहीं बताने वाली बात भी नहीं है इसमें. Of course, ये तो given है, understood है. सीधी सी बात है यार, वो जैसे PlayStation में दिखता है ना, FIFA rankings, cricket rankings, team rankings, जिसका नंबर ज्यादा मतलब जिसका रैंकिंग लोअर है अपन उसी की तरफ है, खत्म वहीं पे.
No one can support that really. Fair.
Exactly.
Yeah, we just had a discussion and I just mentioned that personally, I think Sri Lanka have a 60-40% chance of winning this game because while their batting is bang average, Sri Lanka's bowling attack is absolutely outstanding in terms of the wicket-taking ability and the aggression they've got. So I feel even if their batting kind of succumbs a little bit, if they bat first and get to 160, 170, I still think they have a chance to defend it courtesy of the bowlers they've got, whether it's a pace attack or the spin attack. That's what I believe Sri Lanka have that chance of winning this particular game.
Interesting. And of course, Uganda, Afghanistan, how much did you guys discuss? क्या लग रहा है वहाँ पे? Dinesh Nakrani with the 5 and Alpesh Ramjani with the 100.
So that's what Jeet said. Some T20 record will be broken. He's gone the Afghanistan route and you've gone the Uganda route. So please sort it out among yourself.
No, but what's the record that Jeet thinks will be broken? What's the Afghan route?
I'm not saying any specific record. I'm just saying some kind of a record, some kind of a record in the T20 World Cup might be broken this time around in this particular game.
Yeah, I just hope
Because
it's not
taking
one
all
of those
the
lowest scores or something like that. That's it.
no, it could be. That's why I'm saying I'm not being really specific. I'm just saying some kind of a record of T20 World Cups will be broken.
ठीक है, fair enough. Anything, any final thoughts in terms of both the games that are going to happen tomorrow, Nikhil bhai? Let's start with you on that.
Yeah, I'm hoping we see goods from Andrew Nokia. Again, very individual look out there because he's had a tough time, a lot of injury break, and then did not have the best of IPL. Probably his personal worst. So for him, coming good will be very, very important because that lineup you have Rabada there, Bartman and Kodja might also be, fighting for a spot. So now Nokia wouldn't want to get into that pickle, and he's very, very important because especially on decks like those, if there is something that's up and down, and then his space could really be very handy. So I'm hoping he can click because if he does, then South Africa will breathe a lot more easier, and they can breathe Protea fire as well. So that is from the South Africa angle. And for Afghanistan, hoping this is the game Noor Ahmed can take a good, I don't know, 4 for 5 if he can, but won't get a better chance to just settle into the World Cup. राशिद तो है ही, तो ओमर जाय का भी बैटिंग नंबर खराब है, तो मालिक इतना खर्चा हुआ तो चिप्स भी ले लेते हैं, ओमर जाय थोड़ा रन भी बना ले तो अच्छा लगेगा.
I'm just a little worried about Uganda batters in the power play against Mujib. Simon Sezazi and all these guys against Mujib in the power play itself, I feel a lot of damage could be done. So by the time the power play is over, I hope it doesn't happen, but Uganda might be easily like 4 down or 5 down because they would have never faced that kind of spin before. So it's going to be a new challenge altogether. And before the likes of Rashid or potentially Noor, who may or may not play, are introduced, the damage might be done. So they'll have to be really at the top of things.
Because the point is you can't sit on any of these bowlers. You can't sit on Mujib hoping कि मैं राशिद को मारेगा. You can't sit on Rashid thinking कि मैं नूर को मारेगा या किसी और को मारेगा. So it's going to be very interesting, and I'm hoping, not even against hope, that they'll be able to come up with a very strong plan. Okay, this is how we'll counter Mujib. This is how we'll counter Rashid, because that's what makes this even more exciting. Okay, I'm sure they would have seen a lot of footage. Okay, bhai, we may not have the skills, but if we have enough plans, hopefully we can execute and back our stints to come good.
Yeah, and similarly, like Alpesh Ramjani in the preview, Pramod mentioned that's something even I had gone through. He has picked over 50, 60 wickets at an average of less than 10. Yeah. But bowling to a team like Afghanistan, who are good batters or spin, is going to be a different challenge altogether, something he wouldn't have faced before. So they will be really tested, and I hope they carry or extract a lot out of it and use that experience well in the games to come.
Definitely, and if I'm not wrong, Uganda's coach is also Abhay Sharma, who's worked with the Indian women's team. He's worked with India. He's also worked with India briefly, if I'm not wrong, but might be wrong on that. So definitely, है वहाँ पे भी थोड़ा बहुत कि in terms of the kind of person they have, let's hope that planning and all goes in their favor. Just one thing to add, I completely agree with Jeet in terms of I don't think Uganda or teams, associate nations would have played that kind of spin. And I'm not just referring to Mujib here. Spin in the power play, the way, say, Akil Hussain was used, I could clearly see PNG, but a lot more it is facing Alzari Joseph and Romario Shepherd and not Akil Hussain. Because the kind of drift he got in, it's very different for them, which is why I feel Mujib would be a bigger threat for them in the power play than, say, Umar Zai. So it'll be very fascinating to see how they go about it. Last comment, of course, Daniel says PNG and Oman need big match experience and they can definitely win. Of course, yeah, of course, completely agree with it. Which is why hopefully that this 20-team tournament is the first of many such more editions, and SC continue kare log. The next edition is going to happen in India. I'd love to watch all these games. I'd love to watch all these games in the stadium. Anyways, it's time for us to now wrap this episode of What's Up World Cup. Thank you so much, Nikhil bhai, for making it last minute, and of course, thank you, Jeet. We will be back tomorrow 12 p.m. reviewing Sri Lanka, South Africa, and talking about Uganda's first ever win against a displaying nation in the T20 World Cup and how Alpesh Ramjani was able to do it single-handedly. Until then, it's a goodbye from all of us. Hope you enjoyed this episode just as much as we did. And like we mentioned earlier, who am I? Ke sare answers. Please wait for the live stream to win and key in your answers at the end of the live stream in the main comment section. It's a goodbye from all of us. happy क्या बोले पता नहीं. Just stay safe, guys. Just stay safe.
See you at 3 p.m. Cheers.
All right.